You ever look in the mirror and wonder, when did I stop believing in myself? When did I start doubting my own ideas, my own worth, my own ability to build something great? Maybe you failed a few times. Maybe people laughed at your dreams. Or maybe life just hit you so hard that you forgot what it felt like to trust your own instincts. But let me tell you something. You're not broken. You're just beaten down by noise. Because somewhere along the way, society taught us to believe in jobs, in systems, in companies, but never in ourselves. And that's where everything changes today. This isn't just another motivational video. This is a rally cry for everyone who's tired of playing small. For everyone who's been told you can't, you're not ready, or it's too late. If you believe you deserve a second chance, if you believe you deserve financial freedom, if you believe that you are the investment that changes everything, then do me a favor. Type this right now in the comments. I deserve financial peace, because this isn't just a slogan. It's a declaration, it's a movement, it's your turning point. So before we dive in, I want you to take a breath, clear your head, and say it out loud. I believe in myself again, because once you do, everything else, your money, your mindset, your momentum, begins to follow. All right, let's start with the first truth, the foundation of self-belief. Let's be real for a second. Most people don't lack talent, they lack belief. And that lack of belief, it's the quiet killer of dreams. It's the reason someone with half your potential is out there winning, while you're still overthinking. You see, believing in yourself isn't some fluffy self-help slogan. It's the foundation of every financial breakthrough you'll ever have. Because if you don't believe your ideas have value, no investor, no client, no opportunity ever will. I've seen people with 0 degrees, 0 followers, and 0 family support rise from nothing, simply because they decided they were done waiting for permission. And I've seen others, brilliant minds, die in financial mediocrity because they couldn't even convince themselves they were worth more. Here's the truth. If you don't believe in yourself, you'll sell yourself cheap, every single time. You'll stay in jobs you hate. You'll charge less than you're worth. You'll let people talk you out of your dreams. And then you'll look back one day and realize it wasn't the economy or your boss or your background that stopped you. It was you. Now I know that stings a bit, but sometimes we need the sting before the healing, because believing in yourself doesn't start with motivation. It starts with honesty. It's looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I've been playing small. I've been making excuses, and I'm done doing that. That's the moment belief begins. Not when life gets easier, but when you decide to get tougher. So before we talk about money, investments or strategies, I need you to understand this. Your self-belief is your first form of capital. It's the currency that builds everything else. You can lose your job. You can lose your savings. You can lose your reputation. But if you never lose your belief, you can rebuild everything. All right, now that we've faced the truth, let's go deeper. Let's talk about what's really holding people back, the psychology of doubt and financial fear. You know what's interesting? Every child believes they can do anything until the world starts whispering, be realistic. And that's where doubt begins. We're born fearless, but life slowly teaches us to play it safe. Don't take risks. Don't dream too big. Don't fail. And the problem is, that same fear that keeps us safe also keeps us small. I've met so many talented people who aren't broke because they're lazy. They're broke because they're scared. Scared of trying. Scared of looking foolish. Scared of failing publicly. You ever notice that the people who always say, be careful, are usually the ones who never took any real risks themselves? Robert Kiyosaki once said, the reason most people never become rich is because they're more afraid of losing money than they are excited about making it. And he's right. Fear blinds you. It convinces you that comfort is safer than growth, when in reality comfort is just a slower form of failure. Let me tell you a story. Years ago I met a young man who wanted to start a business. He had a brilliant idea. He even had customers waiting. But he told me, I'm just waiting till I feel ready. You know what I told him? Son, ready is a lie. If you're waiting to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Jack Ma once said, "If you don't give up, you still have a chance. Giving up is the greatest failure." He started Alibaba with 18 friends who were all broke and scared, but they believed in a dream that no one else could see. So here's my question for you. How many opportunities have you missed because of fear? How many times have you said, "What if it doesn't work?" when you should have asked, "What if it does?" You see, financial fear doesn't show up waving a flag. It shows up in quiet ways. It shows up when you settle for a job that drains your soul because it's secure. It shows up when you see someone winning online, and instead of learning you scroll past saying, "They got lucky." It shows up when you convince yourself, "People like me don't make it that far." Benjamin Graham, the mentor of Warren Buffett, said something powerful. The investor's chief problem, and even his worst enemy, is likely to be himself. Think about that. It's not the economy. It's not inflation. It's not your boss. It's the voice in your head telling you you're not enough. Now let's be real. Fear isn't always bad. Fear can be a signal. It tells you you're stepping into something bigger than yourself. But if you don't control it, it will control you. And the sad part, fear doesn't disappear when you get older or richer. It just gets better at disguising itself. John D. Rockefeller once said, "The secret of success is to do the common thing uncommonly well." But fear makes us chase perfection instead of progress. We wait for perfect timing, perfect funding, perfect confidence. Meanwhile, the people who just start imperfectly are the ones who win. So let me ask you, what's the story you've been telling yourself? Is it that you're too old, too young, too late, too busy? Because those aren't facts. Those are fears disguised as logic. I've sat across people who make $300,000 a year and still feel broke, not because they lack money, but because they live in mental scarcity. And I've met janitors who built quiet empires through discipline, faith, and courage, because they believed they were worthy of more. Andrew Carnegie once said, "The man who acquires the ability to take full possession of his own mind may take possession of anything else to which he is justly entitled." Let that sink in. The person who controls his thoughts controls his future. If you've been living in fear, hear me clearly. You're not lazy. You're just stuck between who you are and who you're meant to become. And the bridge between those two versions is belief. So don't fight fear. Understand it, name it, talk to it, and then do it anyway. Because the truth is, your future doesn't need you to be fearless. It just needs you to move forward, even when you're scared. Now that we've exposed fear for what it really is, let's build something stronger in its place. Let's talk about how to reprogram your mind for wealth. How to rebuild the inner voice that keeps you moving, no matter what happens around you. Let's talk about your mind for a second. That voice inside your head that never shuts up. You know the one I mean. The voice that says, "You're not smart enough. You're too late. People like you don't make that kind of money." That voice, it's not the truth. It's an echo of everything you've ever been told by people who stopped believing in themselves. Warren Buffett once said, "The most important investment you can make is in yourself." And he meant it. Not in some cheesy motivational way, but as a principle of wealth. Because your mind is your first business. If you don't manage that properly, you'll mismanage everything else. The sad part? Most people are walking around with a billionaire's potential, running on a poverty mindset. They think small, spend emotionally, and call it being realistic. But realism without vision is just another word for surrender. See, your thoughts are like financial transactions. Every time you think, "I can't," you make a withdrawal from your future. Every time you think, "I'll figure it out," you make a deposit. And the balance in that mental bank account determines how bold you'll be in the real one. Let me tell you something personal. When I was younger, I didn't grow up rich. I remember watching my parents stretch every dollar, saving coins in a glass jar like it was a retirement fund. And they taught me something valuable, even if they didn't mean to. They taught me that money is emotional. It reflects your beliefs more than your bank balance. For years, I thought wealth was about working harder. But then I realized, it's about thinking better. Your income rarely exceeds your self-concept. You will never outperform the story you tell yourself about who you are. Jack Ma once said, "Poor people fail because of one common behavior. Their whole life is about waiting. Waiting for luck, waiting for clarity, waiting for a sign. But wealthy thinkers, they move, they learn, they fail, they adjust, they treat fear like tuition." So let me ask you a question, one only you can answer honestly. When was the last time you truly challenged your own thinking? When was the last time you said, "Maybe I'm wrong about what's possible for me"? Most people defend their limitations more than they defend their dreams. They'll say things like, "Not everyone can be rich." And I always smile and say, "You're right," especially if you believe that. Because your beliefs are the architecture of your reality. Change the blueprint, and your life starts to shift in ways that almost feel supernatural. Benjamin Graham taught Buffett the concept of margin of safety in investing. You know what that means in mindset terms. It means believing in yourself so deeply that even if you fail, you're still standing. That's your emotional margin of safety. Because when you've trained your mind to stay steady, the market, the job, the economy can all collapse, but you don't. Here's something funny about the wealthy. They think differently about problems. The average person says, "I can't afford it." The wealthy person asks, "How can I afford it?" One shuts the door, the other looks for the key. Andrew Carnegie said, "As I grow older, I pay less attention to what men say. I just watch what they do." So watch your own patterns. Do you talk about wealth or study it? Do you dream about success or build systems for it? Do you complain about money or command it? You can't attract what you secretly resent. If you think money is evil, it will stay far from you. If you think success is luck, you'll never study the patterns behind it. The truth is, reprogramming your mind for wealth isn't about pretending to be positive. It's about practicing awareness. It's about catching that old voice mid-sentence and saying, "No, that's not who I am anymore," and then replacing it with something better. "I may not know everything yet, but I'm capable of learning anything." That's how confidence grows, one conscious thought at a time. Because success doesn't start with capital. It starts with clarity. It starts with you deciding that your mind will no longer be your enemy. It will be your ally. Now let me be honest, this isn't easy work. You'll have days when doubt feels louder than belief. But remember this, consistency is stronger than confidence. You don't have to feel powerful to take powerful actions. Just like compounding interest, belief grows slowly, and then suddenly. So before we move on, I want you to repeat this quietly, to yourself. My mind creates my money, because once you take control of that, everything else becomes possible. All right, now that your mindset is shifting, let's turn that inner belief into outer results. Let's talk about action, about transforming belief into bold, measurable steps that change your financial reality. Next, we'll dive into turning belief into bold action. Belief is beautiful, but belief without action is just daydreaming. You can read all the books. You can listen to every motivational video on YouTube, but until you move your feet, nothing changes. Here's the thing, no one likes to admit. Most people don't need more knowledge, they need more courage. They're not confused, they're comfortable. They say, "I'm just waiting for the right time." But when is that? When the kids grow up, when the bills slow down, when the stars align and your anxiety politely takes a vacation? No, there is no right time. There's just now, Warren Buffett once said. The best investment you can make is the one you start today. He wasn't only talking about stocks, he was talking about life. Action compounds faster than any index fund ever could. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met a woman named Clara. She'd been working the same job for 15 years, smart, loyal, underpaid. Every week she'd tell me, "One day I'll start my own business." And one day, after another disappointing paycheck, she finally snapped. She said, "I'm tired of waiting for the perfect moment." So she started, scared, broke, uncertain, but she started. And 2 years later, that little side business was making more than her full-time job ever did. Not because she suddenly became smarter or luckier, but because she did something most people never do. She believed, then acted. Jack Ma once said, If you don't act, nothing will happen. Simple, brutal, true. Every wealthy person you admire has one thing in common. They moved before they felt ready. They launched before it was perfect. They spoke before they stopped shaking. Andrew Carnegie said, "As soon as you make a thought, seek to carry it out." That's how empires are built, not through motivation, but through movement. So let me ask you, what's the one thing you've been postponing, out of fear, doubt, or perfectionism? What if that delay is costing you more than failure ever would? Because fear doesn't cost you money, it costs you time. And time is the only currency you can never earn back. You see, bold action doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow or betting your savings on a crazy idea. It means doing something small but scary today, something that shifts your direction. Maybe it's sending that email you've been avoiding. Maybe it's asking for the raise you've been too humble to request. Maybe it's finally investing in yourself, not waiting for permission, not waiting for perfect. You'll never feel 100% ready to do anything that truly matters. And that's how you know it matters. Benjamin Graham once told Buffett, "You are neither right nor wrong because the crowd disagrees with you. You are right because your data and reasoning are right." And that applies to life. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to trust your reasoning, your preparation, your gut, and move. Because when you take bold action, the universe moves with you. Doors you couldn't see before start to appear. People start showing up. Opportunities find you. That's not magic. That's momentum. And here's the funny thing. Once you start, you'll realize that action cures fear faster than motivation ever could. The more you do, the braver you feel. The braver you feel, the more you do. That's the real success cycle. Not luck, not timing, just consistent, courageous movement. John D. Rockefeller said, "Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great." And that's where belief turns into transformation. When you stop settling for good enough and start demanding better. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. This moment, this message, this voice in your headphones telling you that it's time to stop doubting and start doing. Because belief is the seed, but action is the sunlight. And the longer you hide from it, the longer your potential stays buried. So I'll ask you one final question. If you knew, truly knew, that your next bold step could change your entire financial future, would you still hesitate? Think about that. All right, now that you understand the power of taking bold action, let's deal with something just as important, the voices that can destroy your belief if you let them. Let's talk about silencing external voices, the people, opinions and noise that keep you small. Let's talk about one of the hardest parts of believing in yourself, the noise. Because the moment you start changing, everyone suddenly becomes an expert on your life. You decide to chase a dream, and people say, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" You talk about investing, and they warn, "You know people lose money doing that, right?" You start building something of your own, and they whisper, "Don't get too ahead of yourself." And you know what's funny? Those voices usually come from the people who love you most. But love and wisdom aren't always the same thing. Your parents, your friends, your co-workers, they often mean well, but they speak from their fears, not your potential. Jack Ma once said, "If you want everyone to agree with you, just stay where you are." Because the moment you step forward, you'll start hearing the chorus of doubt. But here's the truth. If you don't learn to silence those voices, you'll live your whole life on someone else's volume setting. I remember when I first started teaching finance, people said, "Why not just get a secure job? You're too talented to take that kind of risk." And maybe they were right, but I would have been securely miserable. So I stopped taking advice from people who weren't living the life I wanted, and that changed everything. Warren Buffett said, "You can't let other people's opinions drown out your own inner voice." And he's right, because the world will always have an opinion, but opinions don't pay your bills. Opinions don't build your legacy. Opinions don't fight for your dreams when you're tired and discouraged. So you have to decide whose voice deserves authority in your life. Now let's talk about the hidden cost of listening to the wrong people. Every time you take advice from someone who's never walked your path, you trade your conviction for their comfort, and over time your dreams shrink to fit their fears. I once met a young man, brilliant, creative, full of ideas. He told me his family didn't believe in entrepreneurship. They said, "That business thing isn't for people like us." So he listened. He got a safe job, and years later he told me, "I didn't choose stability, I chose silence." Let that sink in. Sometimes the loudest noise isn't criticism, it's conformity. It's doing what everyone else is doing because you're too tired to fight for what you really want. Robert Kiyosaki once said, "Your future is created by what you do today, not tomorrow." But if you keep listening to voices that keep you stuck, you'll wake up one day realizing you've built their dreams, not yours. Here's something I've learned after 2 decades in business and finance. The greatest investors aren't just good with money, they're good with noise. They know when to listen, when to pause, and when to walk away, because too many opinions can paralyze you faster than any market crash. You have to protect your belief the way a billionaire protects an asset, with discipline, privacy, and clarity. Think about Andrew Carnegie. When he was building his steel empire, people mocked him. They said he was insane for betting everything on an industry that didn't yet exist. But he didn't argue, he just built. And years later, those same people called him visionary. Sometimes silence is your loudest comeback. So here's my question to you. Whose voice has been controlling your decisions? Who told you what's possible for you? And why do they get to decide? Because at some point you have to stop asking for validation from people who are still figuring out their own lives. Benjamin Graham once said, "To achieve satisfactory investment results is easier than most people realize. To achieve superior results is harder than it looks." And that applies to life too. It's easy to be average. It's hard to be exceptional, especially when you're surrounded by people who've accepted average as normal. So protect your belief like a sacred investment. Keep it away from people who only see limits. Spend time with people who challenge you to expand, not shrink. And remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You don't have to justify your dreams to people who stop chasing theirs. Because in the end, the loudest voice in your life should be the one that says, "I can do this, I was made for more, and I'm not done yet." Now that you've learned how to silence the external noise, it's time to turn inward, to connect belief, focus, and faith in a way that attracts not just success but peace. Next, we'll talk about faith, focus, and financial freedom, the spiritual link between belief and prosperity, and how your mindset becomes the magnet for everything you've been chasing. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. You can't have financial freedom without faith and focus. You can't, because money doesn't follow confusion. It follows clarity, conviction, and consistency. I've met people who can quote every financial guru alive, but still panic the moment life shakes them. They know what to do, but they don't believe they can do it. And that's the difference between the dreamers and the doers. See, faith is not about religion. It's about trusting in the unseen. Trusting that the seeds you plant will eventually grow, even when you don't see results yet. You invest, you study, you build, you stay consistent. Not because it's easy, but because you believe your effort has meaning. Robert Kiyosaki said, "The richest people in the world look for and build networks. Everyone else looks for work." That's faith. That's long-term focus. That's someone saying, "I may not see it yet, but I know what I'm building." Let me ask you something. Do you actually believe your actions will lead to freedom? Or are you just doing things to feel busy? Because some of you are exhausted, not because you're working too hard, but because you're working without focus. You're chasing too many things. One week it's crypto, next week it's real estate, next month it's a new side hustle, but there's no root. You're watering too many seeds, and none of them are deep enough to grow. Faith gives you the courage to start. Focus gives you the discipline to stay. And freedom, real financial freedom, is the reward for mastering both. Warren Buffett once said, The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Let me translate that into life. Wealth moves from the distracted to the disciplined. Every time you lose focus, you pay a price. Every time you give up too soon, you pay another. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history, said, "The man who acquires the ability to take full possession of his own mind may take possession of anything else to which he is justly entitled." In other words, control your mind, and money will follow. Lose your mind, and money will run. I've seen it happen over and over again. A young entrepreneur gets a little success. Suddenly he's everywhere. No focus, no vision, just chasing trends. A year later he's broke, frustrated, and blaming the economy. Meanwhile, the quiet ones, the ones who stay focused on one lane, one mission, one craft, they rise slowly but steadily. Because faith and focus create compounding results. Faith says, "I'll stay the course." Focus says, "I'll stop being everywhere." Freedom says, "Now you're ready for me." Let me tell you something raw. Money tests character. It tests your patience, your pride, your purpose. It doesn't come to people who want it. It comes to people who are ready for it. You can't expect financial peace if your heart is full of fear. You can't expect focus if your life is full of noise. And you can't expect freedom if you're still fighting your own self-doubt. The greatest wealth you'll ever build isn't in your bank. It's in your belief system. Faith builds the foundation. Focus builds the structure. Freedom becomes the view from the top. Benjamin Graham once said, "The investor's chief problem, and even his worst enemy, is likely to be himself." That's the truth. You are your greatest investment, but also your greatest obstacle. So if you're listening right now, stop trying to predict the economy. Stop chasing what's trending. Instead, double down on faith, sharpen your focus, and fight for your freedom. And before you move on, say it with me: I deserve financial peace, because that's not just a slogan, it's your compass. Keep it close, because in the end, financial freedom isn't about money, it's about mastering yourself. Now, let's talk about the final truth. The mindset that separates those who wish for freedom from those who create it. You know what separates the wealthy from the worried? Perspective. The wealthy think in decades, the worried think in days. That's the truth. Most people are so trapped in short-term thinking that they sabotage their own potential without even realizing it. They want to build wealth, but they want it now. They want freedom, but they can't sit still long enough to grow it. Let me be brutally honest with you. The reason most people never reach financial peace isn't because they lack intelligence. It's because they lack patience. Warren Buffett once said, "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." But here's the problem. Most people want the shade without planting the tree. You start a business, and if it doesn't explode in 6 months, you quit. You invest in something, and if it doesn't double overnight, you call it a scam. You see someone on social media flaunting success, and suddenly you feel like you're behind. But listen, wealth doesn't grow on Wi-Fi speed. It grows on wisdom, work, and waiting. John D. Rockefeller once said, "Do not be afraid to give up the good to go for the great." But you can't go for great if you're constantly chasing what's next, instead of mastering what's now. Thinking in decades means understanding that success is boring most days. It's waking up, doing the same disciplined thing, over and over, without applause, and still trusting the process. That's what separates millionaires from the masses. Robert Kiyosaki said something powerful: "The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them." But here's the part he doesn't say often: that mindset doesn't happen overnight. It's built slowly, over years of learning, failing, adjusting, and believing again. I've seen people blow through $100,000 in months because they never built the patience to manage $1,000. They chase opportunities, but never build habits. They want freedom, but they don't want the discipline that freedom requires. So let me ask you, are you thinking like a sprinter or like a builder? Because wealth is not a race, it's architecture. You're not running to the finish line, you're building something that outlives you. Andrew Carnegie said, No man will make a great leader who wants to do it all himself, or get all the credit for doing it. That's long-term thinking. You can't think in decades if you're obsessed with short-term validation. You build faster when you build with people, not for applause. Here's something I learned early in my career. Quick money will test you, but slow money will teach you. Fast success feeds your ego. Slow success feeds your character. And in the end, only one of them lasts. Thinking in decades forces you to shift your identity. You stop asking, how fast can I make it? And you start asking, how strong can I build it? That's when real financial freedom begins, when your timeline matures, when you're no longer chasing the thrill of now, but investing in the peace of later. Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, said, "The investor's chief problem, and even his worst enemy, is likely to be himself." You see, your greatest battle isn't the market, or inflation, or competition. It's your own impatience. Faith without focus creates frustration. Focus without patience creates burnout. But when you blend faith, focus, and patience, you create freedom. So let me leave you with this. Stop trying to look rich in your 20s. Start planning to be free in your 40s. Stop chasing what's popular. Start mastering what's proven. You don't need to go viral. You need to go long-term, because the real wealth isn't in the noise of today. It's in the quiet decisions you make consistently, every single day, for years. That's the millionaire mindset. That's how you win, slowly, silently, and with purpose. Because one day, someone will sit in the shade of the tree you planted, and they'll thank you for thinking in decades. You've made it this far, and that means something. It means you're not just looking for motivation, you're searching for transformation. You see, this entire message about faith, focus, freedom, it's not really about money, it's about you. Because financial freedom isn't built from the outside in, it's built from the inside out. You can't build wealth if your heart is full of fear. You can't grow if you still doubt your own value. You can't lead others if you still don't trust yourself. And I get it. Life has a way of breaking your confidence. Maybe you've lost money. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've failed more times than you can count. But hear me, you are not your past. You're the lesson that came from it. Warren Buffett once said, "It's not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results." That's the secret. It's the ordinary things, done with extraordinary consistency, that change your life. It's waking up when no one notices. It's working while others complain. It's believing again when you have every reason not to. Jack Ma said, "If you don't give up, you still have a chance." Giving up is the greatest failure. So don't give up. Not on your dream, not on your calling, and definitely not on yourself. Maybe people laughed at you. Maybe your family doesn't understand your vision. Maybe the world told you that you're not enough. That's okay. They're supposed to doubt you. That's their job. Your job is to keep going until your results make them believers. Robert Kiyosaki said something I'll never forget. Your future is created by what you do today, not tomorrow. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for approval. Stop waiting for motivation. The moment is now. The approval is within you. The motivation is this. You only get one life. So build something worth remembering. Build wealth that brings peace, not pressure. Build a legacy that speaks long after you're gone. And before we close, I want you to declare it one last time. Type it in the comments. Say it out loud. Write it on a sticky note if you have to. I deserve financial peace. Because you do. Not someday. Not after you make it. But right now, because you've chosen to believe again. Faith, focus, freedom. That's the formula. That's the movement. That's your moment. So if this spoke to you, don't just click away. Like this video. If you're ready to take your financial life seriously, subscribe if you're done living in fear, and drop that declaration below. Let's build this movement together, because this isn't just another video. It's a turning point for you, for your family, for your future. Now go, believe again, and build the life you were born to live.